Hello everyone and welcome along to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. It's Derby week and so we've rolled out the big guns. Obviously Steve Ryder in his usual spot alongside me to the left, but Andy Holding has joined the show once again. It's a pleasure to welcome you back. It's been a while since we've worked together, so it's great to have you on for what is one of my favourite weeks of the year in terms of sport. I wanted to ask you though what you think specifically of the Derby. Before we get into it, there's a lot to come in the show. But your early impressions, we're a few days out from the big race. How do you feel about it?
I think the general vibe is it's looking at a fairly substandard one, a bit of a tricky one to assess. Obviously, City of Troy has still got that massive reputation, and I think if you're a follower of the vibes and the hearsay and the chit chat, and you get sucked into those kind of things, then you're prepared to perhaps give him another go. But from a cold-hearted analysis, I think you've got to look at it at face value and think he's got a huge amount to prove, and particularly at the price. I think it's all about the price as a punter, isn't it? When you've got something so hit and miss as that, I want all my ducks in a row, and for that reason, I think that we could have a bit of a funny result. But the actual Derby itself is a race that I absolutely adore. From an attendee perspective, I used to go back in the day when Slip Anchor was winning, Reference Point, all those greats, Nashwan. I used to go every single year. Me and a good friend of mine from where I used to live, we used to make the pilgrimage to Epsom and go on the inside of the track. So it's a race that I didn't miss for about 15, 20 years. Haven't been so much nowadays. Went when Desert Crown won. But it's a great occasion, and hopefully the race will at least live up to star billing, even though the field as it looks at the moment is probably not as strong as it has been in recent times.
Well, there are a lot of talking points about racing at the moment, but one specific one related to the Derby, Steve, it's the potential shift around how the meeting pans out in the future, perhaps from 2026. Epsom have spoken about trying to reinvigorate the meeting, trying to re-establish the Derby as a great event in the nation's conscience. I'm not sure whether that's eminently possible in the near future, but what do you think about maybe some of the changes that they've proposed?
Yeah, they've used the word carnival a lot, I think, trying to kind of grasp from the Australian side of it, talking around running a Saturday, a Wednesday and a Saturday, but you just worry if we've got the amount of horses to be able to fill 3 days worth of racing. You've got Class 2 races here that you may get relatively small fields in over a 2-day festival, and whether that can branch out to 3 days, throwing in music concerts and the such like, I'm not sure it's the way to go. I do agree we need to trial things, and obviously we've had a couple of trials with regards to the Sunday evening racing, which has now been scrapped. Try it, doesn't work, move on. It appears that we might have done that with premierisation, Rish.
Has that been tried?
Well, I don't know.
Has premierisation been tried, Andy?
If you look at the timings, I just got it on here. The Curragh, we ran at 1:55, Goodwood 2:05, York 2:10, Chester 2:20 and Haydock 2:25. So that real, making sure that we've got time for the best premier races on the day, apparently has been shelved.
Well, if you were a racecourse that spent money to ensure that you earned the right to be a premier race day, I'm not sure what the benefit of it is.
Yeah, in theory it's great, but in practice I don't think it's quite working as well as I thought. Getting back to the Epsom thing, I just think it's a proximity to Royal Ascot, isn't it? It's very similar to Cheltenham, isn't it? Everything in that month prior to Cheltenham, nobody's like scared. Almost everyone's scared to run anything, because it's such a high-profile meeting. If you've got a 2-year-old or an older horse worth its salt, you're going to run for the prestige rather than the prize money, I think. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why something like you just mentioned might struggle.
Yeah, challenging times for Epsom. One thing we'd like to ask you, Andy, is for a horse that maybe has caught your eye so far this season, maybe one that hasn't even appeared yet this season. What have you got for us?
How many do you want? How many do you want?
One that really matters, one that you think, this is...
I think just based on pure numbers, obviously being a numbers man, thanks to Sam and Andy who do all the numbers for us. Passenger was very, very impressive at Chester. Visually, he was amazing, but the clock was just purred. I mean, the way he just went by his opposition was just frightening. I think he's going to be preeminent 1.25 mile horse this season. He's just got a little bit of everything. We know he stays slightly beyond, but he's got that huge cruising speed and that ability to quicken, which all those top race horses have. I think stands him apart from the rest. And there's a couple of like older horse 3-year-olds that have only just had 1 or 2 runs. both actually owned by the same bunch of people, for O'Brien. I'm not sure, there's a conglomerate of them. I'm not sure whether they're on Mr. Tabor was one of them. Horse called Jan Bruegel, who won the last race at the Curragh, I think it was Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, he clocked a number that already suggests he's group class. What kind of group level he'll end up being, I don't know, 3, 2, 1. Your guess is as good as mine. But he beat a horse called Ozark Days of Andrew Oliver's, who was a very, very heavily backed favourite. And his form ties in quite nicely with some of the best Irish maidens. And he left him for dead. And he looked awesome.
Son of Galileo.
Son of Galileo. He's entered at Royal Ascot. I think he's in the King Edward, isn't he? He's also got an Irish Derby entry, so they obviously think quite a bit of him. Whether he'll end up there, I don't know. Only time will tell, because obviously the same owners and connections have got Los Angeles, so a lot depends with if he goes and wins at Epsom, then that might juggle the pack a little bit. But they've also got another one called Highbury, a little bit of a name, easy to remember. He got beat by a horse called Birdman, first time out at Cork in a race that's working out really well. Again, time figure was good, not off the scale, not as good as Jan Bruegel, but a good one. It was the back in sectionals of that Birdman that day, which suggested he was really good. He was like 5, 6 lengths quicker than all the other horses on the card, including a Group 3 won by Thunder Roll. So you've got a feeling that race is going to work out. Highbury's won, Alonso's won. Birdman went on and won the other day, beating a horse of Aidan O'Brien's that was highly touted. And Highbury ran really green that day. He just hadn't got a clue what he was doing. But he was good the next day at Leopardstown. Won by 4 or 5 lengths going away. Game clocked a good time. Put it this way, if he was in the Derby, I'd probably back him over anything else.
Wow.
But I just think he's not mature enough. And obviously they've got Los Angeles, and that's been their target for him because he's a 2-year-old and he's got the profile. But same owners, Jan Bruegel
and
Highbury, along with Passenger, are the sort of 3
wow.
older horses that have excited me so far this season.
What an aperitif.
There you go.
Ahead of what's still to come. So, Passenger, obviously, we're all riding that. Jan Bruegel and Highbury, the names for Andy. Certainly ones that we'll be taking note of. Now on Racing Weekly, it's time for this week's Racing Recap. We stay in Ireland to talk about the Irish 2000 Guineas. Steve, I'll kick you off here with Rosalian's performance, as he, I thought, did really well to pick up Hartem, who was quickening away from the other horses comparatively. You look at the way visually he goes from where he was from beating the 3rd and 4th horses to seeing what Rosalian's had to do to pick him up. Yeah,
I think Sean Levy probably deserves a lot of credit here because it's taken a while for him to land a proper top job, I suppose. He's obviously always been with Richard Ann, and I think he had his first ride ever at the Curragh, obviously when he used to ride back for Ballydoyle back in the day. But there'd have been pressure on this, going off on odds-on favourite in the Irish 2000 Guineas. And Rosalian was a bit keen early. He pinged the gates a bit keen earlier, and he decided to then take him back, get a position. And I think if he'd have beaten, there'd have been a few comments on Twitter around the ride, but had full confidence in his horse, asked him to quicken, and eventually got there to run down Hartem, who's becoming a brilliant horse with a huge fan base this season. I mean, he ran, 9 times as a 2-year-old? I don't think anyone really expected him to progress as far as he has done this season. I was really impressed with what Rosalian had done. And then it's going to be interesting to see if we get that match up in the St James's Palace against Notable Speech. Yeah, for what it's worth, Bet365 have Notable Speech at 6-4 for the St James's Palace, Rosalian 2-1, Henry Longfellow 4-1, Hartem 7-1. It's good to see Hartem at single-figure odds because I think even after the run in the Guineas, people were a bit like, oh, Hartem, he's not as good as Rosalian, but he's getting some respect there. Al Mackham 10-1, although he might go up in trip. We'll talk about him, no doubt. I'm actually not entirely certain it was Sean Levy's finest moment, if I'm entirely honest. I thought what happened, the horse helped him. But I don't know, what was your thought on the performance and just the numbers that he clocked? Yeah,
looking at the numbers he clocked, really good overall, suggesting it was a strongly run race. It looked that visually, didn't it? When you're watching race, you think, oh, God, this is a strongly run one. So the fact that Rosalian managed to make up probably about a 4 or 5 length deficit in a short period of time, I think stands him in good stead. Just shows you how good he was. I think he did bail Sean Levy out to a degree. He probably misjudged being too far off Hartem, but he's got to be a good horse to do that because it was a meeting that, by and large, it was hard to make ground from the back of the field. A lot of front runners, the horses that dictated, always up in the van, stayed there. The pace held up by and large. So I think you've got to massively upgrade Rosalian's run. Whether he's good enough to turn around the form with notable speech, on face value, he probably can't. But you just don't know the levels of fitness and what kind of stage they were at that time in the Guineas. It was Brazilian's first run of the year. Notable speech had 3 runs on the all-weather, so arguably the one was just slightly ahead of the other, both mentally and physically. And it's a different track, isn't it? It's not a straight track. It's not an undulating track as much as Newmarket is. And it's obviously on the round track as well. So you have to ride a different type of race at Ascot. And I'm sure Sean Neal will probably have his mount a little bit closer at the Berkshire track. Fascinating race. Looks like a really good stellar renewal of the St James's Palaces. I think we've got a good crop of 3-year-olds this season, both fillies and colts. The form of both races seems to be working out really well. We've already seen 2 winners out of the English 1000 win, both in the same stable, Fallen Angel, of course, and then Darnation. And the colts version is also looking really strong, which probably gives a little bit of hope for City of Troy, even though he's beaten 16 lengths, I suppose. So yeah, it's coming along nicely, isn't it, that particular division? And
I'll just mention to both of you, River Tiber, who was back in the placings back in third, 6-1 with Bet365 for the Commonwealth Cup. Obviously, Van Dijk just remains favourite of 5s. We'll talk about him obviously in a little bit, but there's elite status. Big fan sitting to my left at 7-1. Unquestionable, who I still think is worth a go in the Commonwealth Cup. He's 25s. I might see how that pans out. But River Tiber, did he do anything to suggest, either of you, that maybe that was a good run and the Commonwealth Cup could be a race for him?
Yeah, he's also, obviously, will have the option of the jersey if they just want to get a bit of a confidence booster in. You'd imagine it would probably be the St James's Palace or the Commonwealth Cup. But I thought it was an okay reappearance, kind of in the knowledge that he'd need the run. I was more taken by the run of Opera Singer if you're looking at kind of reappearance runs, I suppose, in the race that we'll touch on next. But yeah, a nice reappearance, but nothing to go mad on.
It didn't strike me looking at that run, oh, yeah, he wants 6 furlongs. He stayed on strongly all the way to line in a well-run race. The back-end sectionals are good. They compared favourably with Myth By. Didn't touch upon that. Myth By came from last to first. Showed an incredible turn of foot. Did 33.5 for the last 3. And Resilient 33.8. So Resilient was running at basically 5 furlong sprint pace, wasn't he? Yeah. Which shows you the kind of level he was operating at. So I don't think for 1 minute you need to look at River Tiber and all of a sudden, oh yeah, he's a non-stayer. He went as hard to the line as anything. Just wasn't good enough on the day. Maybe a little bit ring rusty again because it was his first run of the season. The other 2 had a run, so you've got to factor that in. So yeah, I'd be looking to keep him to at least 7 furlongs. I don't think dropping back to 6 is
all right.
An ideal option.
Okay. The Coronation Stakes obviously will fall into focus when we talk about the Irish 1000 Guineas, for which Fallen Angel returned back to form. And it was reassuring to see her do that because I think Carl Burt was pretty confident she was going to go very close in the Guineas at Newmarket, and I think he was quite baffled that she didn't. Yeah,
I watched that replay back after the Irish 1000 Guineas to see if I'd missed something because she was so heavily supported. I thought, perhaps did she meet trouble in running? Have I misread it? I thought she just had every chance at Newmarket. She just wasn't on fire on the day, but she was a totally different specimen, wasn't she, at the Curragh? Again, another horse that raced on the speed, but then showed that lightning acceleration and just stayed there. Thought it was a commendable effort by the 2nd and the 4th in particular. Buttons got caught out on the wing a little bit. Again, it was hard to make ground from the middle of the field, and she shaped like she probably just is still a work in progress. I don't think she's quite the finished article yet. Buttons, I think we'll see the best of her in the autumn, perhaps over 1.25 miles.
I'm kind of hoping we might see the best of her this weekend at Epsom.
Okay, right, fair enough. I'm not looking that far ahead. I didn't realise she might go again.
I have no idea whether she is or not. I've backed her for the Oaks, but only because her dam was 2nd in the Oaks.
Yeah, but she looks that kind of filly, doesn't she?
She looks like an Oaks filly.
Yeah, she does.
And it wouldn't be the most crazy thing for Aidan O'Brien to run them in the Irish 1000 Guineas and then back at Epsom. Fallen Angel is 3-1 with Bet365 for the Coronation. Opera Singer 4-1. Al Malka, the Guineas winner at Newmarket, 92. Ramatuelle 13-2. Porta Fortuna 8-1. You were impressed with Opera Singer?
Yeah, I just thought it was the perfect comeback, really. Travelled well into the race and then just got tired. I think Aidan O'Brien's quotes afterwards, he was just thrilled. He was actually surprised at how well she ran. Going back to Fallen Angel, I was with her at Newmarket. I didn't keep the faith. I was like Andy. I was looking at the price all day thinking, have I missed something? And I'm happy for Curragh because he went into Newmarket thinking, I've got a chance in the 2,000 guineas with Knight Raider, I've got a chance in the 1,000 guineas, and neither of them performed. They're talking around possibly stepping her up for the Diane over in France, over in Marlin too. I don't think she'd have any question marks around going that trip. But at the same time, I think she'll, under a forceful, prominent ride, I think she'd have, plenty of pace to win the Coronation Stakes as well. If you're looking at it at the minute with only a point between Opera Singer and Fallen Angel, I prefer to be on the side of Fallen Angel, even with Opera Singer sure to kind of step forward from that effort.
Yeah. Some of the races at Royal Ascot already starting to look quite smart. And I imagine the Prince of Wales's would be a race that will also be quite intriguing when you consider that White Birch looked extremely impressive. Now, Andy mentioned Passenger earlier on, so it's possible they could clash in the Prince of Wales's. But White Birch beat Auguste Rodin. First impression is I thought Auguste Rodin ran really well, and that White Birch just stumped him.
Yeah, I mean, if you take White Birch out of this, everyone would be saying, Auguste Rodin is back. He's beaten Crypto Force by 8 lengths. But White Birch was brilliant. And fair play to you and Johnny Ward, who were both really keen on White Birch. Obviously on the show last week, was well backed on the day as well. He was given a confident ride by Colin Keane, just tracked Ryan Moore every step of the way. To be able to take a pull a couple of furlongs out alongside Auguste Rodin and still go away and win was brilliant. I think a lot will be made around the fact that he's better on softer ground. I just think that he handles it. I don't think he needs it. If you look back at, he was beating, a neck in a fast ground Dante. I don't think he needs soft ground. I just think he handles it better than a lot of his rivals. Ulysses is obviously having a fantastic time. They just seem to progress with age. For a fee of around 10 grand as a stallion fee, if the owner breeder has time and they will allow them to develop, you've got White Birch, you've got Passenger. He would have had Peace Padil as well, obviously, who unfortunately we lost. But yeah, Ulysses is just having an unbelievable time of it as a stallion. And apparently, the long-term target for White Birch is going to be the Arc. It's 25-1 with Bet365, and a bit of soft ground later on in the season, mile and a half. You
right up his street.
Yeah, you can see it completely suited.
Like their sire, White Birch and Passenger seem to have improved with age. He improved as he got older, certainly. He's a very good 4-year-old. How do you read the White Birch Auguste Rodin run? And is it that White Birch is just a better horse than Auguste Rodin, who ran back to his something like his best?
Yeah, he did. Based on the numbers that we keep, obviously we've got data stretching back for quite a while, so we can compare performance by performance. And Auguste Rodin ran right to his absolute best number. Yeah. He didn't do anything wrong. Aidan got him back. On the day, under those conditions, he just wasn't good enough to beat White Birch, who'd had the benefit of a couple of runs, let's not forget. I think White Birch has just really come of age this season, and the Curragh just seems to just suit his eye, doesn't it? Not saying he's not useful, elsewhere, but that track just seems to bring the best out in him. But that was a deadly time, that was. I mean, off the charts, out the ballpark. The best we've got so far this season. Sammy T, who does our numbers, he came onto our little chat room and said, this White Birch is something special. And the number backed it up. So I think the second's run commendably well. He'll probably have another crack at him at some stage. Back on better ground as well. I think Auguste Rodin is definitely a better horse on better ground. Arguably on the day, it definitely played into the hands of White Birch to a degree. I think he just handled it a little bit better with his fitness. But the way he travelled and quickened was something to behold, and it'd be lovely to see him continue that form all the way through the season, because don't forget, after the Derby last year, his form rather tailed off. He was good in the early part of the season, his Derby run was exceptional, but then after, he wasn't quite the same horse.
Yeah, I also, looking at the numbers with regards to the actual ratings of the third, in comparison to Auguste Rodin, if you consider the distance between the two of them, I think it's probably only £2. It suggests that Auguste Rodin has been run below his best on that sort of ground on that trip. I also think Auguste Rodin might actually, I know he won the Irish Champion, which with a really strong performance. I think he might be better at a mile and a half. And my thing is, if you win the Derby, you've got to be a good stayer, because the Derby is if you look at the standard times, it's a stiffer test than the Curragh. You need to have, it's almost half a furlong more than York and Newmarket, the Curragh, Ascot. It's actually, of all those races, all the mile and a half races, it's a stiffer test. So I'd like to see him back at a mile and a half in the summer for the King George, assuming he doesn't do what he did in the King George. Who knows? Auguste Rodin, I don't understand you. But, I mean, even Aidan doesn't even know your name. Augustus. Who knows? We shall see when he's out next. But White Birch for the Prince of Wales is 5-1 at the Royal Meet. Right now, White Birch or Passenger?
Passenger. For the point of view, the main reason is because I think Passenger will be more adept to handling Ascot than White Birch. I think if it was at the Curragh, then I think White Birch have a significant advantage.
9-4 Passenger with Bet365 for the Prince of Wales's. White Birch 5-1. Inspiral 6s. Auguste Rodin 7s. Okeechobee 10s. What do you fancy in that?
I like Okeechobee as a horse. I napped him a few weeks ago when he won at Sandown. He was intended to run in this, and I don't actually know a reason why he didn't actually go there, because they said originally after Sandown that it'd be the pre-Disper hand that he didn't run in, or this. And James Doyle was all chopped up and doing interviews saying he was going, which...
And now they're saying he might not run till later in the year.
Right.
Suggesting that's in the Racing Post today.
Okay, I haven't read the post there, but
so I believe
breaking news.
Well, it seems that they were suggesting to save him for the ground or more ease in the ground at the back end of the year. But
he would need to step up a lot on what he's achieved so far, but I do think he's a horse with a great deal of potential for the rest of the season.
Mick Barhi in the Greenlands. I'll let you wax lyrical about that.
Great ride by Spencer, that was.
Yes, that's him at his absolute best.
It was like the template of how Jamie Spencer's career has panned out, wasn't it? If you could just show someone a showcase reel of Jamie Spencer, that would be probably up the top there, wouldn't it? Yeah. Just an absolute balls of steel ride. On a horse, obviously, he got a huge amount of faith in. To ride a horse like that, you obviously know what they can do. You don't, give good sprinters a 10-length head start or near enough. But yeah, the turn of foot he showed was quite extraordinary. I think it'll be all systems go now for Royal Ascot, won't it, with him?
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee. He is 12-1 for that. Chain of Lightning 15-2. Kinross 8s. Millstream 8s. Regional 9s.
That was a great run.
I thought it was a terrific run.
Amazing
I know you're
Yeah.
obviously keen on him, were he to go to Haydock, and then obviously because of conditions they went there. But it was a cracking run.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, brilliant comeback. Yeah, I just thought, they might edge to go into a Haydock, but obviously with all the rain, they made the right decision to go over to Ireland. I think Mick Barhi, I think dropping back down to 5 furlongs for the King Charles III Stakes would probably suit him a bit better. He's 20-1 with Bet365 for that, as opposed to 12-1 for the 6 furlong race. I just thought this was his first win it was his second win over the trip. The only time that he'd ever won over 6 furlong previously was Chester, which is obviously a lot easier of a 6 furlong. I just think that stiff finish at Ascot, I thought dropping back down to 5 furlongs, that he's got plenty of speed, I think might well suit him a little bit better. This was obviously his first win in 3 starts for Charlie Hill, so he did a great job with him. And emphatically reversed the form with 7 questions from Newmarket.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that race actually at Newmarket has worked out. It was a bit of a bunch finish, and you thought, the form's probably not worth the paper it's written on. But it's been pretty much upheld. Kurdos, obviously, Mick Barhi. And if you go back and actually look at that race, I don't know if you spent any time watching it. I've watched it several times since. Obviously, now the form has worked out well retrospectively. The run of Twilight Calls was absolutely extraordinary. There's flopping out the stalls, and then there's almost like the old Hamlet cigar advert flopping out the stalls. He must have been 10 behind at halfway, and he's ended up getting beat a length to finish 4th. And then if you go back and then think, okay, I'll watch his run in last year's King's Stand, and it was almost a replica. Yeah. But he was drawn on the wrong side last year, as it panned out. If he gets a good draw in the King's Stand this year, he's going to take quite a bit of beating, I think, Twilight Calls, because he's very lightly raced, and I think Henry Candy's probably recognised that there's only 1 or 2 good shots I've got with this horse, and Ascot really does play into his strengths. Yeah. So I'd be looking for the betting when it finally comes out on the King's Stand. Yeah. I don't think there's any betting on it.
I'm trying to remember the name of the horse with the noseband who got an impeded run as well in that Newmarket race, who won the Portland at Doncaster
significantly.
Yeah.
He'd be more of a Wokingham horse.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him again, because I thought he was compromised by the way. So I think that I was great to see that race panning out so well. For the King Charles III Stakes, Big Evs is a 4-1 favourite. Asfura 7-1, Bucanera Fuerte 15-2. Chain of Lightning is also in that. Regional 8-1. Rogue Lightning 10s. Twilight Calls is 16 to
Oh,
1.
Sorry, it's changed the
changed
name.
name.
Sorry,
Yes.
no wonder I was looking for it. I couldn't. What price
You've been
is
sat
Twilight?
there, you've been sat there searching
I
for a
know,
month.
searching for it. Yeah,
To be fair, it has changed. Yeah,
what
a
is
few
it?
races.
16 to 1?
16 to
Oh
1
my
Twilight
God.
Calls. And
That is
Curragh,
amazing.
who won the Temple Stakes, is same price, 16 to 1.
We might need to pause recording for Andy to get on.
That's completely threw me. That's a big prize.
Don't worry. That's what we're here for, to correct names. Anybody impressed with Curragh? I thought Living the Dream ran a belting race.
What?
Um,
He did. Yeah, he did. I mean, to see it out on that ground for as long as he did suggests that the fire still burns brightly. You never know with those horses had such a big campaign, arduous campaign, been all the way around the world. Will they come back and do it again the season after? But the signs were definitely good for him. And I actually thought Rogue Lightning ran really well. He was very easy to back noticeably on the day. For a horse that obviously they paid a lot of money for, Waham Racing. I think that purchase is going to be vindicated throughout the season.
Yeah.
But he got a terrible draw. He got caught out in the wing. He challenged in the slowest part of the track as well, away from where the main pace was. You needed to be over in that middle echelon. So, and the way he hit the line, I thought there was a good bit of encouragement from him as well.
I thought it was terrific, right? Exactly what you're saying, being caught on the wing, because watching him last season, his best performances came when he sat in behind and had a toe through horses and then pulled out to challenge, whereas this time he was always slightly outside.
Yeah.
Could never really get in properly in behind and get a lead. I thought there was enough in there to think that he could run a big race at Ascot. Anything impress you there?
I like the 1-2, to be honest. I thought Curtis, I didn't think he handled the dip quite well at Newmarket last time, so this more conventional track suited him. He's kind of a big, powerful sprinter. Third win in the race for Clive Cox. Obviously, he won it with his sire, Profitable, who went on to win the King's Stand on his next start. He's now 16 to 1 for the race now called the King Charles III Stakes.
Do you want to write that down?
Oh, well, yeah.
and I can completely agree why Living the Dream's connections were thrilled with his comeback. Apparently would need the run. Apparently was big and burly in the preliminaries. He has a really good record at Sandown. So he's going to head there next. He finished second behind Mick Bahi a couple of years ago in the Scurry. I'm sure he won't be 8 to 1 for that, like he drifted to on the day for this.
Inisherin won the Sandy Lane. Obviously, all the chat before the race was about Van Dijk, who was a brilliant 2-year-old. Some people obviously slightly disappointed that Van Dijk didn't win, but did you see enough promise in Van Dijk's performance to think that he could still be a star this season?
Yeah, a lot of the chat this season has been around whether a horse will train on from 2 to 3 with regards to obviously City of Troy. This screamed of a comeback of when he needed the run. I wouldn't give up on him just yet. I thought he was keen in the early stages as if he was a bit fresh and then just weakened into the final furlong on ground, which I know that he won on from good to firm to soft ground last year. But I do think, you could probably forgive him this and he will take a step forward from it. I don't think there was any fluke around it though. Inisherin, I was really impressed with both the trip and the ground were a question mark for him coming into this race, but it was really impressive. Like 4-length victory in a Sandy Lane is a proper performance. To do this on his 4th career run as well, he can definitely go to the top level as a sprinter. Whether they supplement him when they've already got the winner in elite status is another question, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, it's possible that with elite status in the race, they might not do that. But then they might think, well, Inisherin actually...
That's only tongue-in-cheek. I think they'll definitely
It is a
supplement.
seriously... good. Well, if it wasn't the same owner, then I'd be less inclined to disagree. But actually, I think the fact that it's the same owner, there's that nagging doubt at the back of the mind that they might just go with one rather than two.
Yeah.
And there's so many targets for these horses now. But there's so much about Inisherin. I mean, obviously last week I was bragging on to Johnny about pedigrees and stuff like that. It is in his pedigree, even though he's run over a mile prior to that, to suggest he could be a very fast horse. And he looked like that at Newmarket, I thought, through the Guineas.
Yeah.
So wasn't that much of a surprise to see him travel as he did at the head of affairs in the Sandy Lane.
There's so many horses that end up being 6 furlong horses, but the lure of the Guineas is just too big for connections to resist, and I think, well, we'll roll the dice to see if he gets that extra furlong or so, and it by and large never happens. But when they drop them back, that's when they really come to the fore, and that performance Haydock just stunk of that, to be honest. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. I remember, just let me pick this name drop. Chatting to Mick Cannan a few weeks ago, and he was saying that the best sprinters are the ones who actually stay further.
Yeah.
Because they can sustain their best.
Yeah.
And he reminded us that Stravinsky, Mozart,
Yeah.
those horses that he rode for Aidan O'Brien, who were sort of 7 furlong horses to begin, or tried to be 7 furlong, maybe even a mile, when they dropped back in distance, they had that natural speed, but they could sustain the speed for even more than those out-and-out speed burners over 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that, because that seems to be, you think of the classiest sprinters over my lifetime, and a lot of them have come back in distance from, obviously, most famously, Sir Michael Stoute ran Ajdal in the Derby. He won the July Cup and the Nunthorpe.
Well, the two sort of preeminent 6 furlong races at festivals are run at stiff tracks, Ascot, July Cup. So that probably lends itself to why so many 7 furlong horses, stroke milers, come back and win, because they've got that stamina to see it out in the last 2 furlongs.
Yeah. And the best sprinter I've ever seen, I mean, I'd love to hear what you know, but Deja was, they tried to make him a horse that stretches his stamina out, but he was
phenomenal, wasn't he, on his day? Yeah.
You seen a better one than Deja?
Not off the top of my head.
You can have your Batashes, etc., but he was on a different level.
Chief Singer, maybe, back in the day?
Actually, it's not a bad shout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another horse who was...
ran in the Guineas.
Palace winner,
ran in the Guineas as well.
Yeah. That's one of the greatest Guineas
of all time. One of the greatest Guineas of all time.
Sounds like we're doing an episode with Steve.
I know. Was it who won that? Was it El Gran Senor?
Rainbow
Quest. Yeah, they're fan. Yeah.
One of the greatest Guineas of all times.
Yeah.
Okay, was there anything else? I mean, I'm sure there was. There was Royal Rhyme and the Brigadier Gerard, Isle of Durin, the Festival Stakes. I mentioned the name of Al Mackham, who won the Heron at Sandown. I don't know whether that will fall into anything you two want to talk about.
Massively impressed with him.
Yeah.
Massively impressed with him. Yeah. His time figure, just getting it now, wasn't as good as Royal Rhyme furlong per furlong on the night, but his back end splits were really healthy, suggesting that he's got a really good turn of foot. I actually fancied one strongly in that race and couldn't believe one of Carl Burke's actually, Ice Max was it?
Max, yeah.
That had won his last 2 starts really impressively. And I thought it'd take a good one to beat him, and he did it pretty readily. Loved the way he hit the line. So if he goes to Royal Ascot, I think he's got to be a player. I don't know whether he's maybe ground dependent.
Well,
perhaps.
we were talking about stepping him up in distance.
Was
it
the Hampton Court? Yeah, he was 10-1 with Bet 365 for the Chambers Palace or the Hampton Court. He played up in the preliminaries as well. I think he got loose, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, that could probably be upgraded again, which makes a nearly 4-length win in the Heron Stakes.
Incredible.
If you can upgrade it, you're definitely a Group 1 performer, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the Heron's often a good guide for Royal Ascot, and he looks a real star. What else caught your eye last week?
I thought the ride that Rab Havlin gave Sweet William was good in the Henry II Stakes. I think is set to go to the Ascot Gold Cup now. He's 16-1 with Bet 365 for that. I think the switch in headgear from blinkers to a visor probably just sparked him a little bit. I think his finishing effort probably suggests that there's not a lot left in the tank, but I think it's more in his mind than in his body. So the extra trip of 2.5 miles in the Ascot Gold Cup, I don't think would be any convenience to him. I thought English Oak was really good. Was a 4.5 length winner of the 7 furlong handicap at Haydock, likely to head to the Buckingham Palace. I checked this morning; he's gone up 10 to 100. So the handicap has given him a fair whack, but that was deservedly.
Did he get a quote for the July Cup afterwards?
Yeah, he did. It's interesting because he does have an entry in the concluding 7 furlong handicap on Friday at Epsom.
Right.
So he'd run with a £5 penalty, so he'd be £5 well in if they want to turn him around that quickly. But after that performance, you'd imagine all loads read to Royal Ascot. I thought Chief Little Rock was good in the Gallinule Stakes. Won that by 3 3/4 lengths. Aidan O'Brien's won the race 18 times. I thought he was good because he'd kind of looked slightly below that level, and then that's kind of. I know he got a relatively easy lead, but I thought he was good. And then a massive eye catcher was Starlaw. Goodwood.
Yeah, I was desperate, wasn't it?
Dobbs.
Yeah. It was behind another Juddmonte horse called Curragh. Now he finished 4th in his reappearance at Newmarket behind Ten Bob Tony and Boiling Point, and then was making his handicap debut here off a mark of 98. He was still travelling unbelievably well. Just had to wait for room. I checked the steward's report afterwards, and he lost a shoe. So you could definitely upgrade the effort.
He finished 7th.
He finished 7th. Yeah. Now, I thought the handicapper might have kind of missed it and maybe dropped him £1, but he's not. He's left him on 98, but he went off 22 to 1 for this. Yeah, he won't be 22 to 1 if I've got anything to do with it next time.
Presumably go Britannia, would he?
Possibly. Yeah, that would suit him, wouldn't it?
Could do. This was obviously over 7, but it's, yeah.
Sir Michael's also got, obviously, that horse that won at Chester for that race as well.
Yeah. Wherever he goes, Starlaw,
yeah.
I'd definitely put him in the tracker because that was massively eye-catching.
If you look through Sir Michael Stout's runners through May, not one horse, not even one horse has run below 4.
Yeah.
In this month. Even he had a horse running a maiden at Leicester yesterday.
Yeah.
And even that horse ran really well behind Matsuri, who won for Roger Veron. At the moment, I've not seen anything like it. You can count on the horses running well at the moment.
Manna from heaven for someone like yourself who follows the yard.
Great.
Yeah.
It's been great. And Fox Journey bolted up the other day.
Yeah.
Obviously, Passengers. His horse touched wood somewhere.
Going into Ascot.
Yeah, the horses. It's great. It's great to see him doing that. Was there anything else? I mean, Steve mentioned Chief Little Rock. Did that strike a note with you?
Yeah, again, another big improvement on what it did first summer. That was an excellent run. I agree with Steve as well with English Oak. I was going to mention him. He'll probably go down the handicap route with the Royal Ascot. Maybe the Sandringham over 7 or Britannia.
So,
I don't really know the ins and outs there. The biggest eye catch of the week though for me though was a 2-year-old at the Curragh. Henry Matisse won it. Wasn't him.
Okay.
It was the horse that finished 4th.
Yeah.
I urge you to go back and watch a horse called East Hampton, trained by David Marnane. Ran in the black colours with the green sleeves and the chevron. He was up the stand side rail and he was absolutely tanking through that race. Never got a run whatsoever. Finished on the bridle. He's by Cracksman. So the breeding certainly suggests that he's done really well to show so prominently. He shows so much speed over 6 furlongs first time out.
Yeah.
I won't say the sky's the limit for him because I think that'd probably be jumping to conclusions, but I haven't seen a 2-year-old this year impress me as much and be so unlucky and think that is definitely one to keep on side next time and for the rest of the season.
Yeah. The 1, 2, 3, 4 in that race are all worth putting in your tracker. So the third, I think, was an expensive breeze-up horse for the Callahans. The second, Cadogan.
Yeah. That's gone for a few quid, isn't it? I think there's word around that they're trying to buy that for a right few quid. I was thinking, well, if they're prepared to spend up to £1 million or whatever for that, then what is this East Hampton worth? He would have battered him.
Yeah.
Honestly, he would have won it. He would have won easily had he got a clear run, and that's not stretching it.
But obviously they've changed the Chesham again, haven't they? Now you've got to qualify for the sire, so Cadogan does. So that might weaken the field for the Chesham. So even though he's only finished second on debut, I think Churchill went up there. Obviously hadn't won a race before for Aidan. This is obviously for Joseph, but yeah, the 1, 2, 3, 4 from that race is well worth putting in your track.
Even the Chesham looks like it might be a good race. Charlie Appleby introduced a horse, was it Yarmouth? Age of Gold?
Yeah.
So it's all coming together already. Yes, Henri Matisse only narrowly won that race from Cadogan. I wasn't sure when they crossed the line who'd got it. And so East Hampton that you mentioned and the third that you mentioned. So lots of names to take into account after this week's Racing Recap. Now, before we get into our Epsom preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have a best odds guaranteed offer. It is available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And so we go to the big race on Saturday. And of course, it is one of the great sporting occasions. It is the Derby at Epsom, for which City of Troy is the 9-4 favourite with Bet365. Los Angeles, a stable companion, is 9-2. Ambiente Friendly is 5-1. Ancient Wisdom 5-1. Dancing Gemini 11s. Diego Velasquez, who also has the French Derby as a possible option. He's 16-1. Macduff 16s, 20s, bar those. I'll let you go again, if you don't mind, Andy, on City of Troy. Because you alluded to that at the very top of the show.
Yeah.
Because that's the big talking point of the race, and the rest of the market is built around whether or not you believe that City of Troy is worthy of being 9-4 favourite for a 1.5 mile classic at Epsom on the back of a poor run in the Guineas.
I think you're basing your theory that you should judge what happened to Augustin Rodin and compare it to City of Troy. I think that's based on very flimsy material. just because it happened then, it doesn't mean to say, oh yeah, that it's got to happen to the City of Troy. I think you just have to look at it and take it at face value on the day, what he achieved, how poorly in comparison to his reputation did he run, and what happened, and obviously what went before him last season. He looked so brilliant, and that run was just so poor. There was just a massive a huge gulf in it. Could you rely on him and Aidan to get him back to that level in such a short space of time? But again, it all just boils down to the price, doesn't it? He's an incredible. I think he's an incredibly short price. I just couldn't entertain him at that price. I don't know about you. What do you think about City of Troy? Could you back him at 9-4, 2-1?
Definitely not. No. But it just goes to show, like 80% of the review of the Guineas was on City of Troy. 80% of the preview of the Derby is on City of Troy, and they've got the unbeaten Los Angeles, who's not even getting a word on any stable
Their
tour.
PR works.
Yeah.
Their PR does work. Whatever people say, they're very good at it. Because exactly that, Steve, you're spot on.
Until Los Angeles wins, and then they want to promote him as the
speediest horse ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've done it for year upon year. It's what they do. But I think that is what has been built into the price for City of Troy. It's the PR.
Yeah.
He was a very good two-year-old, but lots of very good two-year-olds disappoint and they don't train on. I mean, Aidan O'Brien, Air Force Blue.
Yeah.
He was amazing as a two-year-old, and then he got beaten in the Guineas, and then that was it. Okay. So what wins it?
Well, I personally think out of the front two in the market and the two Aidan O'Brien horses, I think Los Angeles has probably got a stronger Derby profile at this stage anyway, as far as I could see. He was workman-like, admittedly, at Leopardstown in that trial. He could have been a little bit more impressive, but ultimately I thought he got the job done quite well. And I did notice as well, actually, the back-end sectionals for that race held up quite nicely with the rest of the card. So I think he's one of those horses that's sneakily good. Yeah. You don't realise what he's doing because he's a bit of a, he's quite a big unit, isn't he? He doesn't hit you with his sort of brilliance, but he has got, I think, quite a big stride attached to him, and he does cover a lot of ground. So if he wasn't the fact he's by Camelot, and there is quite a couple of Camelots in this race, which is kind of like tempers my enthusiasm a little bit, because I don't think Camelot's won a side of Derby when he has, he not? And he's had a few really nice ones, but for some reason or another, they just don't seem to perform at Epsom or stay the trip or have the sort of backbone to win it. But he could buck the trend. I haven't backed him yet. I probably wish I had, because he'd been slightly bigger prices. But the one I have backed, and this is a really unconventional one, and that's Dare a Mile. Trained by Irving Burrows, who impressed me no more than any horse has done so far this season, the way he quickened when he won at Windsor. Again, looking at his back-end splits are incredibly good. Off the back of a strongly run race as well. They didn't crawl. So he's got a healthy kind of like foundation going into the Derby. But I went back and watched his run in the Group 1 last year in the Futurity, and he's only just behind a lot of horses that a lot of the formers intertwine with this season. So I don't think he's got that much to find anyway. And then obviously he's already proved himself this season. And he's going under the radar a little bit because, like I say, he hasn't got an overly sexy profile. I backed him at a slightly bigger price than he is now.
He's 25
but
to
even
1.
at 25 to 1, if you can get that on the day, 4 or 5 places, I'm sure some firms will be betting with those kind of exotic kind of options.
Those colours have been placed at big odds in the Derby a couple of times.
Absolutely, yeah.
So wouldn't be a big... So Jim Crowley was...
Yeah, I was going to say, what used to be Breakfast with the Stars, Jim Crowley was definitely had a big grin on his face, didn't he?
Yeah, waxing lyrical.
Yeah, I think he's a nice horse in the maker. Whether he ends up being a mile and a half horse, I don't know. But he could easily drop back and be a really good mile and a quarter horse because he travels and he quickens.
He is a very interesting suggestion. 25 to 1 with Bet365 for the Derby. Steve, last week you gave a positive mention to Ancient Wisdom. There has been rain around. Has there been enough rain to increase your confidence?
Yeah, hopefully myself and the followers have got yourself in a nice position. He was 14 to 1 on the show last week, and he's now into 5 to 1 for the race. I think that is a lot around the soft ground, and obviously the fact that economics hasn't been supplemented. I made the point last week that I thought Tom Marquand was very good on his ride. I thought Ancient Wisdom, I thought William Buick was travelling well and kind of got penned in a bit, and once the race had gone, he kind of just kind of let Tom Marquand go and made sure that he finished second. If you looked at it on the face of it, finishing only half a length ahead of War Rooms, it's not good enough to win this. But I think both factors of slightly softer ground, the up-in trip to a mile and a half will suit him well. Whether I'd be as keen to take the 5-1 it is another question, but there's not a lot in this, and you're scraping around for horses at big prices like what Andy is. And you know that Ancient Wisdom is a Group 1 performer. He won the Futurity last year, and his performances on the back end of last season on softer ground were very good. The ground we're looking, I'd probably imagine you're looking at good to soft at worst.
Yeah.
With the forecast rain, they are due some showers, but nothing that significant. But yeah, he'd definitely be my bet still at 5-1.
Yeah, he's one of 3 Group 1 winners still left in the race. Obviously, City of Troy, Los Angeles won the Group 1 at the back end in France, and Ancient Wisdom won the Futurity. I have no idea. I'm going to wait because I think the ground will be quite important to the likes of Ancient Wisdom, maybe into Los Angeles, considering how impressive he was, or the way he won his Group 1 at the back end of last season, heavy ground.
He's a big, heavy-topped horse, isn't he? I think he's going to need a little bit of juice to be absolutely at his maximum. I mean, one horse we haven't mentioned, I think, be ill-advised not to, and that'd be Ambient Friendly.
Yes. Where do you stand on the whole picture with his chances? And I mean, you weren't on the show last week, but we did talk about Rab Havlin and Callum Shepherd, which is also been in the news.
I'm sure you've done that to death.
Yeah.
I still find it hard to believe that they'd run the risk of putting themselves in line for a fall there, almost. You can't. It's a lose-lose situation, isn't it? It is, unless he goes and wins easily, then it's a huge "I told you so" moment. But the horse itself, just looking at his chances alone, despite who's riding him, I think they're first class. He was very, very keen first time out in the field, but that time was really exceptionally good, and the races worked out well. The winner flopped to a degree at Chester, but we'll give him a pass on that. Don't think Chester necessarily suited him. But the thing of Carl Burke's Caviar Heights went on to win. Again, he blew his chances away at York in the Dante by pulling too hard, so you can't use that stick to beat him with. But I thought Ambient Friendly was massively underestimated. It was almost as if that race in the field and his participation in it was forgotten. He went off. He was 20-1 in the morning into that Lingfield Derby trial. And I thought he got pretty much the best form. I think certainly the numbers of the time figures were up there comparatively with the rest. And he won like a 6-4 favourite, didn't he? Let's face it. He got there travelling really well, quick and away from some horses with big reputations. Obviously, Illinois came over as a foot soldier, if you like, for Aidan O'Brien, and he beat him readily. The fact that he's well balanced, he comes down a hill, he travels well, he gives himself seemingly more chance now of getting home, the way he's settling and getting into the rhythm of his races. And another point to make as well, James Fanshaw's horses are absolutely firing on all cylinders. He's winning with a whole bunch of horses that he wouldn't normally consider him winning with, i.e. maiden horses and 2-year-olds and that kind of stuff. So I think if he gets a good draw on the day and Rab can sort of smother him away and get him settled in that early part of the race, he's going to be a big factor later on.
Yeah, it's a great case for him. I think we've said it before, but were he trained by somebody else, the reaction to his win
absolutely,
at would have been extraordinary, because that was visually and numbers-wise an excellent performance when he won.
Couldn't knock it.
But there we are. I have no strong view on the Derby at the moment, but I hope that Ancient Wisdom, Dare a Mile, Los Angeles, they all run well. I should be waiting for ground to see whether or not I'll back either Ancient Wisdom or Los Angeles, because they look the two obvious ones. If I was looking for a bigger play, it may well be Dare a Mile, primarily because of the proximity to those horses that you mentioned, and the fact that I think he might be better with time and also distance. So.
Well, is he a 5 times worse horse than Ancient Wisdom based on the
no,
Doncaster
exactly
run?
Not.
The further that race is going as well, you watch that last furlong, he was closing down the winner. And his first run of the season was exceptionally good. So he's definitely gone the right way.
Okay. There we are. Hopefully in there
Simple.
we've mentioned the Derby winner. The Oaks. Is it that clearer a picture than the Derby? Well, let's chat about it. Ylang is 15-8 favourite. Ezaliah 7-2. Ruby's a Red 7-2. She's a maiden. Forest Fairy 7-1. You Got to Me 12s. Secret Satire 14s. And then 20-1 or bigger, the remainder. Ylang. Is she the right favourite? Is she a likely stayer? Is she good enough? What do you see?
Yeah, you've asked me a couple of times this over the last couple of weeks, and I've come back to Ylang. I do think she is the most likely winner. I think the Guineas is always the best trial for it. I know on breeding she isn't strictly guaranteed to improve for this trip, but it kind of reminds me a bit of Minding-esque, of being able to win this through class as opposed to actually, I mean, we never saw her over a mile and a half again. She won the Fillies Mile as Minding did. I just think the way that she stays on at the finish, she could well win this, run in this, and then drop back down to a mile and two for the likes of the Pretty Polly. But the way that she stayed on in the Guineas, I'd be happy that she trained on. Like Andy said, the form is all working out pretty well in behind. And yeah, I do think she's the most likely winner. We said after the show, after the trials at Chester and Lingfield, that Ruby's I Red was a big eye catcher, but she was sort of 7-1 around that stage. Yeah. If you're asking me to back her at 7-2, having been beaten in a trial, I'd prefer to be backing Ylang at 15-8, to be honest.
Okay, so Ylang at the moment. What about you, Andy?
I think it's a race where I think a lot of the outsiders here, unlike the Derby, can be fairly readily brushed aside. I think I just don't see them being quite good enough. The likes of Forest Fairy and Secret Satyr, the trial winners. So I think it's quite top heavy here. I think the win will come from one of the front three in the market. Of all the Aidan O'Brien runners that ran in the respective Guineas, I thought Liang was actually the most impressive. Who would have thought that Aidan would have 4 shots at it? Well, obviously, he's had more runners in each race, but he hasn't had a winner of any of the classics. Quite extraordinary. I thought River Tybee obviously ran well in the Colts Classic in Ireland, but Liang definitely struck me as being a horse that you could see appreciating further, the way she hit the line. Only got beat to length. Took a while just to sort of hit top stride, but I think Epsom will really suit her. I think the rhythm of a relatively more mundane mile and a half will really play into her strengths, and we know she's got a good turn of foot, having displayed that in the Guineas in the latter end. She's finished ahead of 2 horses who have gone on to win Guineas, i.e. Fallen Angel and Darnation. So it looks a strong piece of form, doesn't it? She's only going to improve for the run, I would have thought. I think the Oaks has probably been arguably the number one target, even though they wanted to win the 1,000. I just slightly prefer her over Rubies and Red, who ran an extraordinary race at Lingford. Again, I thought it was a mile behind. I think whether that was just sort of like a mid-race malaise from her or whatever, she just, I don't know, still not quite switched on as a racehorse as perhaps several others in the field, but her finishing effort was quite amazing. I think she's crying out for the trip as well. So if you could have got a nice each-way price with her, if she drifted out, say that's a 4 or 5 to 1 on the day, then maybe you could entertain her again. But now she's 7-2. You're struggling on that front. So I think Lang will probably win.
Okay. Steve actually made the point to me as we were walking in together today about last year, at the end of last season, you had Aidan O'Brien with City of Troy, Henry Longfellow, Unquestionable, River Tiber, plus a whole load of backup horses, Los Angeles, etc.
Yeah.
Then the Fillies, Ylang and Opera Singer, and 4 classics have gone.
Absolutely extraordinary.
And he hasn't.
Yeah.
Probably almost arguably one of the strongest hands from a 2-year-old going into 3, and not even a sniff. Yeah. The closest he got was River Tiber, wasn't it? I don't think he's got one.
Yeah,
I don't think he's got one in the frame, has he?
Was 3rd, and Ylang was 5th.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Maybe this could be his weekend. He sparks back into life with all hogging all the limelight.
Back to being a genius again.
Yes. Well, I'm kind of hoping that it might be if he runs buttons in the.
You're desperate for that to happen, aren't you?
They did for Minding, didn't they? They ran her. She was beaten in the Irish 1,000 Guineas and went on and won the Oaks.
And absolutely, what you say. I mean, I think she's had 3 runs this year, and at no point have I thought that she's shown her absolute best. Whether it's the way she's been ridden, the position she has had in the race, I don't think we've seen in any of the 3 races that she's had her at her absolute best. And if I was watching that race with the view of obviously liking her for the Oaks on Sunday, I was thinking that's nice prep run to run in the Oaks, because she wasn't given that hard a time, and she was hung up on the outside, and another stride she'd have probably just put ahead. I think obviously Opera Singer would have neither. I think she'd have been 3rd. Other than that, and she's crying out for further. So
what price is she?
She's 25 to 1.
My gut feeling with her, I know Aidan's had several throws at the board with a lot of his horses in the classics. The fact that he's got Liang Lang and Ruby Zar Red in there, they might wait for the Irish version with her.
Yeah.
And give her a little bit more time, or maybe Royal Ascot.
Maybe the Riverdale.
But I actually bet against what my principles with Buttons. I backed two in the Irish Guineas. That was a Lilac Roller and her.
Yeah.
In the sense that Buttons had not done a speed figure. All the races she'd run in were slowly run.
Yeah.
But I took a chance with her because I was thinking, initiatively, I thought this horse is crying out for a strong run race and further.
Absolutely
and
right.
It worked out. Although she didn't win it, she was the biggest eye catcher, I thought.
Yeah, I think she, if it was the mile, she hasn't had.
Yeah.
She just needs a strong run race. She needs further, and I don't think she minds a bit of juice in the Grand either as well. So, Aidan, can you run her in the race just so I can see whether or not I'm an idiot? You probably know the answer to that anyway. Okay, so that's a look at the Oaks. And the other Group 1 on the weekend, or on Friday, it's the Coronation Cup. Emily Upjohn is the 8-11 favourite, obviously unlucky in the Oaks. Luxembourg is 3-1. Feed the Flame 7, continuous 8-1. I think Dubai Honour still involved, 12s. Time Lock 16s. Hamish is in there at 20s. Okay, Emily Upjohn, 8-11. Interested or alternative?
No, I wouldn't be in a rush to take it. I prefer to be a layer than a backer at that price, to be honest. Albeit that it does look a weak renewal this year. I kind of went through it, and Emily Upjohn obviously won it last year, but has strong claims. Luxembourg, I still think that has to prove that he's up to this level, if I'm honest. I couldn't see anything in Feed the Flames form to make him a 7-1 shot in it either. I know he finished a close third in the Gannett, but that looked a poor race. Now, after saying that, I think you would probably laugh at me, the fact that this horse was beaten by a 9-year-old outbox last time. But I thought at the prices, I thought Time Lock was a big price at 16-1. I quite like horses that have handled Newmarket with regards to then heading to Epsom with regards to the undulations and things that way. And she won a Group 3 over a mile and a half at Newmarket last season. Was then a bit keen, lost a shoe in the Jockey Club Stakes when behind outbox. But the fact that they've targeted her at that and they then come in here, they definitely think that she's a Group 1 filly. And I thought 16-1 was a big price. William Buick's already jocked up, so intended runner, and this could cut up.
I'm sure, yeah. Obviously, you'd imagine White Birch and Augusta Road aren't going to run, which would thin the field out even more. So Time Lock, interesting. Connections are quite keen on her. They're actually talking about the small field being a positive for her. What do you think, Andy?
I don't like tipping short price favourites. When I do my sort of podcast with George for the weekend, if there's a thin one, I'll try and skate around it and look for a bet without the favourite or something like that. Anything but tip the obvious one. But I actually think this is quite good value, Emily Upjohn, because as you said, the front two in the market. The two of the more predominant players in the market currently are not going to run. And then when you look at it, there isn't a great deal of strength in depth there. I take Steve's point of view with Time Lock. I think you want a guaranteed run. If you can get 3 places now before the entries come through, I think that's a good bit of business at 16-1 each way about Time Lock. But I mean, that Group 1 that Emily Upjohn was 5th in last time out was an absolutely sensational piece of form. It was a strong time. I thought she was a bit unlucky in the race as well. I mean, watch it back again where she was positioned. But I mean, the winner's a top class horse, Rebels Romance. He's gone on to prove that subsequently. Pont Lonsdale was 6th. We saw what he did the other day. Chester clocked a fantastic time. And even Augustin Rodin was in that, wasn't he? He finished 12th. Yes. And obviously he went on to just get nutted the other day by White Birch. So it's by a country mile the best form. She's the only course and distance winner in the field. So that ticks that box as well. I just think she's a class apart. And
big ride for Kieran Schumacher, isn't it?
It's a big weekend for Kieran Schumacher, as we've been saying that pretty much every day in 2024, but it will carry on, no doubt, until he settles properly into the role and has a series of winners. But yeah, 8-11, Emily Upjohn. I'm going to take a chance on Luxembourg, primarily because he's only had 2 runs over a mile and a half. One was in the Arc when he was 7th, and he was a bit unlucky. He would have finished closer that day. That was off the back of a win in the Irish Champion. And then he ran in the King George, where it was a strongly run King George. Hookham obviously winning the race. And I'm looking at who's going to make the running. And I think Luxembourg is a horse that has shown his best when ridden from the front or prominently. And I think it's possible that Luxembourg might get out in front. And if if it's Ryan riding, assuming it is Ryan,
Yeah.
that would be the play. It's not a massively strong view because Emily Upjohn does have from that Shima Classic, as it has been for the last few years, is one of the strongest pieces of form internationally. So I also agree that she was compromised in the way the race was run. The first three got away, the others couldn't get into it, and in the end, she actually did quite well to finish.
She did.
She did.
Yeah, she was strong all the way to the line.
But I'm going for tactics here, and I'm thinking a Ryan Moore masterclass on Luxembourg in the Coronation Cup. So there we have it. I mean, there's some other good racing actually around the Derby meeting on the Friday and Saturday, whether it's the nifty 50 handicap, the Diomed. I'm not backing Royal Scotsman. We're finished, I'm afraid, man. And then
Divorced.
the dash, the 3-year-old dash as well. There's lots of interest elsewhere. Is there anything that you want to mention now that appeals in some of the other races?
Yeah, there's a couple. The race, I think it was the London Gold Cup, wasn't it? A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. Newbury.
At Newbury, won by King's Gambit.
Gambit.
That was just off the scale. I think that win is a group horse. It's been raised accordingly, and I think there's been bids of upwards of $1.5 million for that horse.
Right.
I've heard on the grapevine, and I'm just trying to find what race it's running in. But the fourth horse is due to run at Epsom. I'm trying to find the. I think it's called Persica.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
one of
the
Richard
Ammo
Hannon's,
horse.
the Ammo horse. I thought he ran exceptionally well, and he's down to run at Epsom in one of the handicaps. I don't know if it's Friday or Saturday, but I'll be looking to get with him, whichever race he runs in.
That's in the first race at Epsom on Saturday.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
The
and
125.
Sean Levy's already booked to ride it. Persica, and there's one on the Friday. Again, Richard Hannon horse. He won at Leicester first time out. Again, clocked a time suggesting he's a group horse, and he's in a listed race on Friday. And I think his name is a Ram or something.
Ram, yes.
Yes. I think we're going to be hearing big things of a Ram.
Okay.
That was the first time I think he had a wind operation following his run first time last year as a 2-year-old. But they backed him as if defeat was out of the question. He was something like 14 to 1 in the Racing Post forecast. He went off 6 to 4. So you're thinking, your ears are pricked here. This could be quite good. And he lived up to that reputation first time out. So they obviously knew what they got. And Ryan Moore's been booked to ride him in the Scurry Stakes.
Excellent.
So there you go. There's my two.
You've shaken my confidence slightly because I fancy one of the first races
Sorry.
on Saturday. No. I mean, you're on the right track.
I think it's really strong form, that London Gold
I
Cup.
think it is in strong form. The London Gold Cup is such a good race. Steve, what else?
Yeah, on the topic of Richard Hannon, he won the Woodcut in 2013, 14 and 16. He has the top two at the minute, the Actor and New Charter. Sean Levy's dropped up on the Actor. He's the likely runner. He's top on RPRs at the minute. It's 2 to 1. So he'd probably hold strong claims heading to the Woodcut.
Do you think New Charter's got better form now? The run behind
but the fact
the Godolphin runner is a better one.
Sean, whether they'd go straight there, I know she obviously wouldn't have a penalty, but the fact that Sean Levy's dropped up on the Actor, I thought she ended up probably being an unlikely runner. Princess Elizabeth II Stakes, I thought Running Lion would really be suited by the drop back to a mile. She's 3 from 3 at a trip of a mile. Yeah. I know Ashima Murphy got some stick in the Dahlia Stakes for going too soon. Hung a bit left-handed, so whether she'll handle the track at Epsom particularly well would be a concern. But I thought she was probably the most likely winner. She's around 2 to 1 with Bet365. The dash is a really interesting thing. If you look back at the last year's race, their current ratings and their prices, it's quite an interesting read. So Novello won it last year, races off the same mark, 14 to 1 with Bet365. The second, Silky Wilkie, is off £8 lower and is 7 to 1. And the third, Clarendon House, is now off £11 higher and is the 6 to 1 favourite. Now, I know Clarendon House obviously has furthered the form, won at York last time. Tom Marquand rode him really well and keeps the ride. But yeah, if you fancy Clarendon House for that, off £11 higher, you've got to like Silky Wilkie off £8 lower at a slightly bigger price. And then just a shout out to Not So Sleepy, who's entered in the 5:15 on Saturday, previous course winner. Yeah, keep it on going. Get old Not So Sleepy.
Okay. I just mentioned one when you're talking about.
What was the one that you liked in that first race?
I'm going to save that as my best bet.
Okay.
I can't change my mind now, even though you've totally destroyed any confidence that I had in it. But I'll just mention one other, which is Ross Colin as a former winner of the 7 furlong handicap at Epsom on the Friday. He won the race, I think, about 3 years ago. He was on an upward curve. He got a massive rise in the handicap for winning that race, but he won it really well. Seems very well suited to the course. He disappointed last year at Epsom, but not been quite at the same form. He's had a few runs this season. He's not back down to the same mark. He's still a few pounds higher, but it looks to me, and I haven't spoken to the Dixons at all, it looks to me like this has been the plan. Get him ready to run and try and win the race that he once won again. So I'll keep an eye on him. That's on Friday in the last race, the 540, the 7 furlong handicap. And I'm going to save the one that is now going to obviously get beaten by Persica in the opening race for our best bets, which is still to come on Racing Weekly. But before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It is available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. So here we go. The best selections for this week from Andy, Steve and myself. Andy, you are first on the blocks.
Yeah, I'll go with Persica. Obviously, I've already mentioned I haven't got anything... Shall I change it? Shall I go? No.
No, that'll be good. We're gonna have the winner of the first race.
I just think that London Gold Cup, as it is pretty much every year, is a race worth following. I've got no real reason, based on the numbers that we got, to think that King's Gambit, the winner, is anything other than a group horse in the making. I presume he'll go Royal Ascot. So anything that ran well to a point and finished in the first 4 or 5 and showed a bit and what he did, I think it's got to be worth following next time out. So yeah, sadly it's Persica.
Okay, so that's
Your heart's
Persica.
sunk.
It has sunk. Persica for Andy in the first race at Epsom, the 125 on Saturday. Steve.
That's going to be Persica in the one.
Please don't tell me it's another horse.
It's not. I really like Epictetus in the Diamond Stakes. He's currently 11 to 1 with Bet365. Now, looking at his breeding, he's by Kingman out of the brilliant race mare Thistlebird. Now, she won 2 runnings of the Princess Elizabeth second stakes. So she was 2 from 2 at the track. Epictetus is 1 from 1 at the track, having won the Blue Ribbon Trial last year. Now, he was disappointing on his reappearance at Ascot, but it was at a time that a lot of the John and Thady Gosden runners all needed their reappearance. They were coming on massively for the run. Now, the ratings in this race are fascinating. Both Witch Hunter and Royal Scotsman are top rated with 111. Maljoom, Investo, and last year's winner Regal Reality are 110, and he's only 109. Now, himself and Regal Reality are the only course winners in the field, and yet Epictetus is double the price. I think he's an absolute cracking bet at 11 to 1 with the likes of Royal Scotsman definitely having to prove his well-being based on his run last time. So Epictetus in the Diamond Stakes at 11 to 1 for me.
Yeah, I can also see him getting out in front in that race and sort of dictating terms. So, yeah. I like that. And here we go. Why am I bothering going up against Andy Holden? We all know that there's no point in doing that. But I'm sticking to my guns. Portsmouth was a pretty impressive winner. First time up this season at Epsom. Course form, which I really liked. He's now rated 83. He went to Goodwood, ran on with plenty of cut in the ground, over 1.25 miles, and was way too keen. How he was still involved in the finish of that race when he ran at Goodwood last time, I will not have a clue. The horse who finished back in third, Al Kawanij River, has come out and won since. I think he's much better than 83. So that was the key to me, the fact that he's won over the course. He's rated 83, but I still think he's got more in hand. Oisin Murphy, who rode him when he won at Epsom, is back on board again. And obviously he's getting plenty of weight from the likes of Persica in the opening race. So how about a forecast? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Reverse forecast, obviously. Or the exacta, as they call it. I'm going for Portsmouth in the 125 at Epsom. I'm obviously, my confidence shaken by Andy Holding's Persica selection in the same race. Steve stayed out of it. He's going for Epictetus in the Diomed. And that is the list of our 3 best bets of the week. Good luck as well with your Derby selections. Thank you very much. Andy, are you making the journey there this weekend?
No, I'm not, sadly. Not sure what I'm doing this weekend, but I should be. Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be great fun. Hopefully the weather play ball and we have a good derby.
Yeah,
And
I
Oaks.
hope you're right. Yeah. You're going to Epsom.
Yep, I'll be there on the Saturday.
How high up are you going to go?
I'm going in my top hat.
Top hat.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Good man.
Excellent. The higher you go at Epsom, the better the view. It's a stunning view. As long as you can get a view of the course, it is superb. I don't care what people say. It is the home of the Derby. It's where the Derby should be. It's a great race. It's a great occasion. I hope that it continues to grow again in the future. Thank you very much to Steve and to Andy for joining me for this week's episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Good luck to all of you with your selections for the Derby, the Oaks, Coronation Cup and whatever else. As always, if you like what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. They have been very kind, so we do appreciate that in the last couple of weeks. We'll be back next week to have a look at, obviously, what happens at Epsom, as well as looking ahead to Haydock. But for now, from the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.